Hi, so this is a quick tutorial for doing the assignment of the week. Down in this corner of Maya, there is the layer editor. It has all the different layers that I have in the scene. So layers are just a system for easily hiding and displaying objects. So you can hide things and display them quickly. I have one layer for every object that we have to make for this week's assignment. This is just going to be a quick demonstration of how to make each shape. More details on how to use Maya in other videos. So first, object 1. This is pretty simple. What we do is we start by making a cube. Well, I'm just going to select the example, move it back, keep it in view, but just move it back. First, we have to make a cube. There's a lot of ways to do things in Maya and a lot of different options. So what we're going to be doing is making a polygon primitive. We go create polygon primitive, and we want to do a cube. But what we want to make sure, one option we have to check right now is make sure interactive creation is off. So I just clicked it on. So now it's checked. I want to click it off. And then now it's off. I'm going to make the cube. The cube pops up here. Great. So I have my cube. Now I need to add some edge loops to make it, to start getting this, create this little shape that I have. I add edge loops by going into the Edit Mesh menu. If you don't see the Edit Mesh menu, you need to click on this little tab and go to Polygons. Now I'm going to do a trick and make the button that I need more convenient to press. So it's under Edit Mesh, go down to Insert Edge Loops. If I hold Control and Shift on the keyboard right now, Control and Shift, I'm holding them, I click on this, it doesn't look like anything happened except right here a new button appeared. I can do it again, Insert Edge Loop Tool, bam, new button in my custom shelf. These are called shelves. They have all sorts of different tools in them. You can have a custom one. So I've just added the Insert Edge Loop Tool button right here. If I want to get rid of these, if I've made too many like I have now, I can middle click and drag it into this little garbage. Okay, so I have my cube. I'm going to press now, instead of having to go Edit Mesh, Insert Edge Loop, I can just click on this button here. So now I need to add some edge loops to get this model started. I click, whoop, it's stuck in the middle. That's because my tool is set up in a way that I don't quite want it right now. So to change the tool settings, we can press this Show or Hide Tool Settings button. Right now I press it, and it didn't work the first time because these 3 tabs are on the edge. So I was on a different tab, I pressed it, and I hid the tool button. The tool button comes back up, so here's the tool settings. Now here's the options for the Insert Edge Loop tool. By default, they're probably not set like this. I was probably working on something else before, so that's why mine are set the way they are. What we want to make sure is that relative distance from edge is the one that's selected. So now I can click. So what I want to do is I want to click on an edge, and now I can drag around where I'm going to add an edge loop. Put that down there, drag and put this one here, and then click on this edge to make one here, click on this edge. Whoops. Sometimes Maya does things where you don't want them. Okay, now it looks like my edge loop tool has sort of screwed up. I'm going to make sure that, let's see, things aren't working well. When that happens, sometimes what I like to do is go back to edge mode, press Q on my keyboard, select everything, deselect everything, go back to object mode, Okay. Hopefully that won't happen. There we go. So I've added my edges where I want them. Now I just need to pop out that face so that it sticks out like that. So I right click on the object. I can go, there's a bunch of different modes. When you right click on an object, all this menu pops up and there's tons of things you can do in here. But the main things that we want to work with are object mode, edge mode, vertex mode, and face mode. So right now I go to face mode, and now I'm going to switch to my select tool, which is Q. Go over that in another video. I select the face that I want to extrude, and then I can go edit mesh, extrude. Now the extrude tool has popped up. One thing to know is that the moment I pressed extrude, new geometry was made. So if it's important to know that when new geometry made, that if you just don't press this tool, things might be screwed up. So pull out this blue arrow to pull the face out, to extrude it out. There we go. We have our first object made. So I have the first object done. I'll just call it Kyler or Mr. Kelly object 1. And I'm going to go to my channel box layer editor. I'm going to right click on object 1 and add selected object. So now when I hide that, it disappears. Object 2. This is a weird looking one. So start off by create polygon primitive cube. Now I'm going to insert edge loops again. Use my insert edge loop button. Go to the settings because this time something way different is happening. This time I'm going to turn on multiple edge loops and set it to, first I'm going to set it to 3. So what that does is now when I click, it creates 3 edge loops that are equally distanced all around. So that does these 3 cuts on this side. Now I want to cut right in the middle, so I'm going to set that to edge loops 1. Click on the edge, right on the edge, and now it does one cut right down the middle. And then I want to cut in the middle horizontally, and then cut in the middle here, cut in the middle there, cut in the middle one more time. Great. So now I have all of those cuts made. The next thing that we have to do is, well, we need to go to vertex mode. We want to use the select tool, which is we press Q on the keyboard. So I select this corner in vertex mode. I'm holding shift, I select the other corner. Now I scale this in. I deselect everything. I didn't explain that very well. Shift select, select one vertex, shift select the next, press R for scale, and now I can scale these in. Press Q again to go to select, select one point, shift select the next, press R for scale, scale this in, Q, select, shift select to select another one, R to scale. So I have that shape. This front looks a little bit big compared to the example. R to scale. Oh, one thing that I did is that I pressed this little button here to show the edges. You can go through a bunch of different view modes. This is wireframe. This is shaded. If you press the button next to it, you get shaded with little lines to help you see everything better. Now, the last thing to do on this is to select, so make sure you're in vertex mode. So you right click on the object, go to vertex. Now I click on this vertex, press W to move, move it up. Select this to move, move that up too. Right click on it, go back to object mode. And that is the shape. I'm going to write this, double click on the name, Mr. Kelly Object 2. I'm going to go to the layer editor, right click on object 2, add selected object. Make sure that Mr. Kelly Object 2 is selected, or else this won't work. I can hide that. If your outline or this section isn't visible, just press this button down on the side. So it's not visible, press that, now it shows up. If you can't see that, sometimes it's because there's too many of these different panels or strips of user interface down at the bottom. You can hide those by going Display, UI Elements. You could turn off the time slider. You could display UI Elements. Let's turn off Status Line. UI Elements, turn off the command line. So those are hiding, so hopefully that will reveal this outliner button. It happens on the lower resolution screens. I'm going to turn these back on because I have a big enough screen. Okay, time for object 3. This one's pretty simple. It's like a little house piece. So first step is move it back out of the way. Create polygon primitive cube. I'm going to add 2 edge loops. I'm going to go to my tool settings, make sure multiple edge loops is on, and number of edge loops 1. I just want to get edge loops right in the middle and right in the middle there. Now to make this shape out of this shape, I need to merge vertices. So I'm going to go to object mode, make sure the object's selected. Now I go to edit mesh, and I'm going to use the merge vertex tool. I used Control and Shift to make a little button in my custom shelf. Delete the new one that I don't need. So I click merge vertex tool. It brings us into vertex mode, and now all I need to do is click and hold on one vertex and drag it to another one, and it merges them together. It takes the first one you click on and merges it into the second. Merge that one down and that one down. That was a quick and easy object to make. Call it Mr. Kelly Object 3. Go to the layer editor, add selected object. Flying through these. Now here's a slightly more complicated one. Sort of like a weird gear or tire. I'm going to move it back. So this time, create polygon primitive, and this time instead of just clicking the word, I'm going to click on the box. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to go create polygon primitive cylinder. So that popped this up here. It's not the right size or shape. So I'm going to open up the attribute editor, which you can do by pressing this little folder button. So this is a complicated view of all of the programming elements that go into make the cylinder. There's a lot here, but we just need one simple part called the polycylinder 3. This polycylinder 3 thing has all of the values that go into making this cylinder right now. First I'm going to change the height of this little cylinder, put it to 0.5. Whoops. 0.5. Next, I'm going to change how many subdivisions there are that go around it. I'm chosen the number 14. So you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 pieces around. And then how many subdivisions there are vertically, subdivision height. I have 3. Okay, so I have the basic shape ready. Now I need to extrude all of these faces. So what I need to do is go to face mode, press Q for select. Phone going off. And okay, so face mode, Q for select, and then I need to start selecting these faces manually. Select here, click one, hold shift. Now I can select the other ones. I'm selecting them in a checkerboard pattern. Let's say I accidentally let go of shift and press click. Oops, I lost all my selection. Thankfully, I can control Z and get my selection back. Say I select a few things mistakenly, I can fix that by either undoing, control Z, or I can hold control and that will deselect while I click. So hold shift to select, hold control to deselect. So I've selected all the faces. I'm checking the top. I didn't accidentally select anything on the top or bottom. And I press my extrude button. And in this case, I want to pull out my blue arrow. And I'm going to do a little modification. I'm going to use this, change this offset. See, right now I'm changing the offset. I click on it and I drag and it moves really fast. Can't really get a precise number. What I can do is hold control while I click and drag. I can hold control while I click and drag, and that gives me more precise control of this offset number. So I just put that to 0.03. And I can go back to object mode by right-clicking object mode, and there's my shape. Slightly different size, but that's fine. Okay, so I've made Mr. Kelly object 4, selected it, and add selected object. Now for object 5, this is sort of like a vase. So I'm pressing W to bring up my move tool, move that back. So in this case, I need to make a cylinder. Create polygon primitive cylinder. And I need to add some cuts in it, and I need to scale those edge loops to make it into the vase shape. So select my insert edge loop tool, go to the tool settings. I'm just going to do this by hand, so relative distance from edge is like doing it by hand. So I need one slice up here, one there, and one there. Now I'm going to go to right click on the object, go to edge mode, and I'm going to press Q to go to select. And now I'm going to start selecting loops. I do that by double clicking on one edge, and that selects the whole loop around. So double click, press R for scale, and now I'm going to scale this down by clicking on the middle. If I click on these other things, it starts distorting it in the other directions. So I'm just going to go in the middle, and that scales in all directions equally. So I could do the top one, the second one, double click to select the loop. It's not essential that we get exactly the same shape for this exercise. I could move this one down, scale it up. I'm just going for pretty close. And really, I want to make sure that you know all of these different ways of modeling. Exactly what you model isn't of utmost importance, but being able to match a different model shows that you can control the tools that you're learning. Okay, so there's my object 5. One more. So select my object, add selected object. Object 6, this one's pretty wacky. Okay, so move that backwards. This object started as a sphere, so create polygon primitives, sphere. This sphere has way too many faces, so I'm going to go into the attribute editor, polysphere, and change the subdivision axes to 8. That was the number I chose. Okay, so that's getting there. Now I need to scale this. If I just scale it, it just changes the whole shape and doesn't get us what we want. What I'm going to do is do a special scale where I hold Control, and now if I click on the green axis, it scales the red and the blue axis at the same time. So hold Control and do the green axis, so the y-axis, and I can scale it into this oblong shape. Okay, so I did that. Now I need to select some faces. So right click, face mode, press Q on the keyboard to go into select mode, and I want to select the loop of edges that go around the sphere. So I click on one face. If I hold Shift and double click on the face next to it, if I select one face, hold Shift, double. Okay, if I just double click, it selects the whole thing, every face. If I select one face, double click on the face next to it, it selects the loop all the way around. This works for all sorts of objects. As long as there's a loop, you can click on one face, click on the one next, double click on the one next to it while holding Shift, and it will select the loop of faces. So click, hold Shift, double click on the face next to it. Now it's I've selected this bottom loop. I'm going to do an extrude. It's important that for this extrude that the option keep faces together is on. So I'm going to turn that on. Click extrude, pull the blue out, and then I also did an offset where I held Control, clicked on offset, and made it a bit smaller. Now the last step is to click on a face up here, hold Shift, double click on the face next to it, and we're going to go to Edit Mesh, and we're going to uncheck Keep Faces Together to show the difference between the last extrude that we did. Now if I go Extrude, I pull this out, all the faces are now separate. I'm going to hold Control, change this offset, make it very small and pointy, sort of like a rotor or something. Right click, object mode, Mr. Kelly, object 6. So you'll put your name where I put Mr. Kelly. And I will add that to object 6 layer. So now I have 6 different layers with all the objects I made, and that's perfect. So what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that we file save scene as, and find a good spot to save it, and I'll just call this Mr. Kelly object creation, and I'm going to save it as a Maya ASIC. This just helps prevent some errors that pop up sometimes. So save as, because it's a student version, press continue, and that's the end of this video.